Okay, let's get started. Good afternoon. For those that do not know me, my name is Sidney Furbush. I'm the manager of supply diversity for San Diego Gas and Electric. And welcome back all our small business customers, suppliers, special guests, and panelists to SDG&E's webinar series. This is our 7th webinar since the beginning of the pandemic. This week, we are in the 3rd episode of Thriving in the COVID-19 Beyond the Pandemic. In this series, we're sharing information on best practices, tips, lessons learned, and how best to thrive within the new norms. The topic of this episode is how businesses adapt through dynamic situations. This is one of the most important topics that we can share with you today. This adaptability resonates at SDG&E. As I think back over the years that I worked for the company, it gives me some ideas about how our company has been able to endure the wildfires in 03, 07, and 010. I think about the level of preparation, the lessons learned, and the transformative actions that we've taken to mitigate the fire risk. My takeaways from those early days that I think about working in our emergency operating center is even in those seasonal situations, we can have lessons learned that impact us for a lifetime. I'm excited today from our panelists to bring in different perspectives on how to prepare for the unknowns that each of us will be facing in the near future. So let's get started. I'd like to pass the mic on to Bruce Mayberry. He's our Senior Supply Diversity Advisor for SDG&E and the webinar facilitator, and also today's moderator. So Bruce, if you could share with all the attendees the logistics of the webinar, some details about our specific panel today, and also introduce the panel guests.
Thank you, Sidney Furbush. First off, we would like to encourage everyone to mute your microphones and turn off your cameras so we can hear our guest. And as Sidney said, we have a phenomenal event today, webinar, and it's how businesses adapt through dynamic situations. I think we can all agree that COVID-19 is here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. So what we're going to talk about today is how do you get on with your business and live through this pandemic and make sure that you strive while this pandemic is going on. We have an incredible panel today, and I'm excited to say hello and welcome our first panelist, Warren Ruis, is Director of Regional Public Affairs for San Diego Gas and Electric Company. In his role, he's responsible for the company's support of local governments, tribal nations, elected officials, staff, and certain regional agencies. Warren, welcome to the panel today.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Erica Beal, who is the CEO and founder of AVIVV, a certified women and minority firm providing professional services to the gas and electric utility industry. She is seasoned in dealing with crisis situations, being married to an active duty 21-year Navy SEAL. Today, Erica has developed a program called Impact Now to hire transitioning veterans and veteran spouses like her into the utility workforce. Erica, welcome.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Matt Eventoff, has served as a strategic advisor and high-stakes communication trainer for numerous Fortune 500 companies and countless other organizations on location in over 80 countries around the world. He is often brought in to advise on executive communication that span communicating complex information and crises management. Matt, welcome to the group today.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I'm excited to be here.
And last but not least, we have Dr. Edward Williams, the founder and CEO of Solved Engineering, Inc., a professional engineering consulting and staffing firm for gas and electric utilities. He is a licensed engineer and holds a PhD with a passion for helping minorities with STEM occupations. Moreover, Solved Engineering, Inc. is a diverse supplier headquartered in San Diego, California. Dr. Williams, welcome.
Great, thanks for having me here.
So again, our topic today is how businesses adapt through dynamic situations. We have 4 panelists. We're going to ask you to please mute your microphones and turn off your cameras so we can give all the attention to our panelists. And we want you to stay tuned because after this event today, we're going to send out a survey, and we ask that all of you respond to the survey so we can get you the type of webinars that you most want to see. My first question goes to Warren. Warren, at the beginning of the pandemic, what were SDG&E's biggest concerns for its employees, customers, and community? And how can these best practices be followed in other businesses?
Well, thanks, Bruce, and thanks to you and Sydney and everybody who put this together. It's really exciting. And gosh, I look at the resumes of the panel, and I'm looking forward to learning as well. But you know, at SDG&E, we really looked at it just as you said: employees, customers, and community. For our employees, we wanted to make sure they were working in a safe environment. For those employees who didn't require to be in field, they were able to work at home, in the office, or in field. You know, we're an infrastructure company. You're going to see our employees continue to be working in field to maintain a safe and reliable gas and electric system. And that stuff just doesn't happen overnight, nor can it happen remote. And so you're going to continue to see our folks in field. One example that I really like is we had our mission control operators who are in Mission Valley. They lived on site, actually lived in RVs. There was some great media coverage from the mayor, number of other folks that we got out of that, and really celebrated and lifted up that body of work that took place. And it's 24/7 work. Folks had to live on site so we didn't infect or have the potential to infect anybody who was working up there. As I think about customers, you know, we knew that we understood that losing a job or reducing work hours can have financial hardships on a family. My fiance is a flight attendant, and his hours were cut dramatically. We know how impactful that can be. So we understood that we need to do something. We addressed this immediately by providing a voluntary moratorium on service disconnections for utility service. Regulators required us to do so later, but ours was voluntary from the get-go. We ran multiple TV and radio campaigns to make sure that customers knew there was income-based assistance programs for those who qualified. A lot of folks qualify today who didn't in the past, so it was really important to make sure we got that message out. And then just finally, in the community piece, you know, in tough times, big communities should step up. I think we have lots of money going to nonprofits, all of it shareholder money, right? So none of it coming from folks' rates. But you know, whether you're a small business or a large business, taking a stand, giving what you can, and volunteering is so important.
Thank you, Warren. To follow up with that question, how has being classified an essential service affected our suppliers and our employees?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important that folks realize that some services are essential, some are not. Obviously, gas and electric service is really essential. We're blessed to live in a country where that's an essential service and folks expect it. If you're working from home, you have to be able to open up your laptop. I know we have tons of entrepreneurs and small business owners who are on the webinar today. Having a stability of service at home to be able to execute what you can as part of your business it's just not optional. It has to be perfect. So I think folks expect the lights to turn on when they wake up in the morning, and they expect natural gas to flow when they cook dinner and take a hot shower. And so it just has to be perfect. And we continue to operate with a 24/7 mindset while doing our best to protect our employees who are in the field.
Thank you, Warren. I'm working from home, but it looks like you're working from some remote island somewhere.
This is Santorini, Greece. It's one of our favorite vacation spots.
Beautiful background. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Matt. Why
Yes,
should
sir.
business invest time in creating a crisis communication plan?
I want to echo what Warren said, and I want to thank you, Bruce. I want to thank Sydney, and I want to thank Erica. I want to thank Dr. William. I want to thank SDG&E for this opportunity, and everybody for joining us today. Thank you.
It's only an hour-long program, Matt.
I get it, Bruce. You know, and unfortunately, an unfortunate reality of life is that crises, by definition, don't occur when everybody is in an office. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and everybody you need to access is available. They happen at inopportune times, and failing to prepare usually puts everybody in a situation that is not optimal. One striking moment from this crisis that will always stick with me is March 11th. And it shows that this affects everyone. And it was during the Mavericks game, the NBA game, and mid-game when the NBA decided that the season was canceled, watching Mark Cuban, who was the billionaire owner of the Mavericks, get the information at the same time that everybody else was, that the season and his business was canceled at that moment in time, really showed that it impacted everyone. And preparing puts you in a better position, not the best position, but a better position to be able to deal with the challenges that come.
Thank you, Matt. None of us have seen any recent professional sports, so thank you for taking us down memory lane and making us wanting more. Erica Beal, as a 21-year military spouse, you have experienced firsthand crises and how to pivot and adapt to change quickly. What would you say is your desired goal is when experiencing a dynamic situation?
Well, I'd like to say what Warren Ruis was talking about earlier and just the benefits and the programs that SDG&E has created. I'm taking advantage of those right now. I'm coming now as a business owner, and I'm looking for ways to be innovative and really streamline costs, right? So there is a business center that I utilize. But part of that, what I really kind of say philosophically, when you look at your business plan and you talk about how you're dealing in these crisis situations is, I'm a firsthand experienced person going through it. And what I have found is that no matter what happens, you're always going to have some unfortunate event that's going to take place in business and in life. And you've got to have a contingency plan. And what I try to do is I try to stay very focused and measure very small attainable successes and wins along the way. That means that, yes, you have to repivot. Yes, you may have to totally change even industries and offerings, but you keep the momentum going and you grow those little wins so that eventually when you're looking back on it, you're learning from each one along the way, but you're also reassessing your business and staying focused on the plan. So to answer your question, the biggest kind of advice that I leave behind is create a plan and a vision, stay with that, but be open to the defects that are going to happen along the way and leverage the resources that are out there, which we're using right now.
Thank you. And the follow-up to that question, Erica, you have a military husband, which could be deployed at any time with little to no notice. He's a Navy SEAL. You have 2 young kids at home, and you're trying to grow your new business. How do you juggle all of those things?
Well, there is no juggling. I'm going to tell you right now, there's no such thing as balance. I know some people think, oh, if you put in this amount of time, you'll get it back at this end. You don't. Unfortunately, that's my take. But what you do have to have is respect for each other, right? So I'm in a partnership, a marriage. We've been together for quite some time. And just like any marriage and any friendship and relationship, you give and take. So what we do is we assign specific days. Like every Wednesday is my day, so I plan around that, right? Every Monday is his day. And then we negotiate, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday's the flip day, right? I think as long as you set a routine and a pattern and respect and communicate that, it's going to help you along the way. But I got to be honest here, in a business like we are, sometimes, even with kids, I've got to take the calls, or I'm even doing work at the hours that nobody else is doing. But it's just about communicating and respecting and setting up those routines.
Thank you. I would like to encourage all of our listeners, if you have a question, you can go in and type your question in the meeting chat. And when we get an opportunity, we will ask your question. So feel free to do that. Dr. Williams, you have a PhD. Can you give me the full title of your PhD, please?
Yes, my PhD is in electrical engineering with an emphasis in power systems engineering and more deeper emphasis in protection and controls engineering.
Very impressive. You've probably forgotten more than I know. So I have a very deep question for you here, right? This is very intellectual. Given that you have a PhD in engineering, during this crisis, which one did you use more, your PhD or your common sense, and why?
I use my common sense because I have 4 children, 4 precious children, and I think about various things like washing your hands every day. Every time you engage in touching something, you wash your hands. It's just as simple as that. Just washing your hands starts, with the simplicity of just, staying, 6 feet away and practicing social distancing. So that's how I apply the common sense part. I leave the medical advice to the medical professionals. Thank you.
Smart idea. Smart idea. Warren, during this pandemic, how are you continuing to communicate and connect with your business customers?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, San Diego's not a huge headquarter industrial town, but the businesses we have are really important, right? Our small and medium businesses are really the backbone of who we are as a region. They drive the innovation, the tourism, the biotech economies, and they really need our support, and they need it now more than ever. We established internally an economic recovery task force that includes this webinar series to provide resources, information, and continued connection to our business customers. Our business services team is making direct contact with business customers to offer information on services, programs, payment arrangements, making sure they're on the right rate. Through our website, sdge.com/recovery or sdge.com/coronavirus, we've got access to information around utility services, funding sources, how we're supporting organizations, obviously lots of outreach on social media. And I would just say, don't be shy about taking advantage of some of those business saving programs. We all pay into them, right? It's almost like unemployment insurance, right? If something happens, you've paid into it for years, take advantage of it. There's tons of programs out there for businesses, for residential customers. And like I said before, you may qualify now where you haven't in the past. And then finally, I would just say, sometimes SDG&E, we're a utility, right? We run a gas and electric system. We're not always the most effective messenger. So using our relationships with our chambers, our Main Street associations, EDCs, other community-based organizations, trade associations has been really critical to get the message out about these programs.
Thank you, Warren. That was great information. So I understand you can go on the website if you qualify for some programs. You may qualify today when you didn't qualify yesterday. But let's say that you don't qualify for any of those programs, but you're working from home, as most of us are. Do you have any suggestions on how to reduce your energy bills while spending more time at home with you and your family?
Yeah, tons of stuff also on the website that are not just programs, but also tips. So changing out light bulbs. Most consumers in California statewide are on a time of use energy rate. So making sure you're using energy when it's the cheapest. So we don't have to run natural gas power plants. If we don't have to, we can maximize wind and solar on the system, lower rates for everybody. So those are some of the things that I would recommend, right? Lighting, timing, and on our website, there are some additional tips as well.
Thank you, sir. Hey, Matt, can you tell us what some of the secret weapons to effective crisis communication are?
I think there are a few. Thank you, Bruce. I think the most effective weapon is time, which sounds a bit contrarian because in a crisis, one of the things that is hardest to find is time. But time can be your secret weapon. And what I mean by that is it's sometimes a minute, it sometimes can be 5 minutes, it can be 15 minutes. It's learning how to respond rather than react. And when a crisis, when we are faced with something that is completely unknown, shocking, different, and everything unravels at once, most of us have the natural inclination, me included, all the time to react. Typically when we react and we have a moment to think about it, 5 minutes to think about it, 10 minutes to think about it, an hour to think about it afterwards, our response would have been different. Much like the doctor said, when you're dealing with small children, or Erica with her sons, the initial, when you're dealing with kids, the initial reaction rather than waiting 15 seconds and responding are much different. And in crises, everything becomes more important and more timely. So taking that pause of a second or 2 seconds before responding to a stakeholder or the media, taking 5 minutes to think about what you're going to say before you go on a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call with your staff and your team, taking an hour to be thoughtful about what the next steps are in the face of ambiguity and things that are unknown are increasingly valuable. I want to jump on something that Warren said too, because I think it's important for every small business owner and every individual entrepreneur on this call. Warren in his role has a number of stakeholders. The reality is, no matter, Warren in his role does that for a huge business. No matter the size of your business, you have stakeholders, whether those stakeholders are regulators, they are other local businesses that are nearby, they are government officials, they are members of the media, they are clients, they are your internal employees. Have lists of them, be able to access them, because one thing that happens in a crisis and makes a crisis an actual crisis is you can't get the information. There were actually situations in New York when New York went into full lockdown where people couldn't get into their offices. But some people didn't have backup information at home or on a thumb drive. So that information was in the office. They were at their home, but that information might as well have been 4 oceans away because they couldn't access it and they needed it. So having that, thinking ahead of time, and again, preparation.
Thank you, Matt. We know that SDG&E is doing a great job during this pandemic. But what are some of your favorite examples of small companies successfully pivoting during COVID?
One of my favorites, actually, a San Diego County company, and I'm not going to name them because I can't. But it's a Pilates clothing company that my wife utilizes a lot. And they, on the second day of the pandemic, on the 13th, went from making Pilates and yoga clothes to making masks. And their value proposition was very simple. Buy a mask from us, we send one to the local hospital as well, local hospital in San Diego County. I thought it was a brilliant way to repurpose their limited manufacturing ability to not only do good, but do well by keeping people employed and keeping their business going. I love all of the different examples throughout the country of utilizing alcohol distribution and manufacturing facilities to make hand sanitizer, when all of a sudden the bottle of Purell that we all took for granted in December 2019 that was 99 cents at the front of Walgreens was now $500 on Amazon and you couldn't even get it. So I love that. And then all the way up to, you know, what Elon Musk was doing with trying to repurpose Tesla's manufacturing facilities to be able to create ventilators. I think there are so many examples of businesses being resilient and moving in the moment. I think things that are much that don't necessarily get the press attention, but to me are just as impressive. Communities everywhere where businesses that were never online got online quickly, and restaurants learned how to. If they never did takeout before, they learned how to do takeout. If they didn't know how to do delivery before, they learned how to do delivery. If they didn't know all of their customers, they learned who all of their customers were. And I just think it's just this resilience that we're seeing in the business, and just seeing how big businesses like SDG&E are able to support these smaller businesses. It's just really, really empowering. And I think is what really allowed us to reach this point.
Thank you, Matt. That leads me to the next question for Erica. Erica, we hear the terminology of corporate social responsibility. Why is that important, and how does it relate to the bottom line?
You know, I gotta say, corporate social responsibility is even more important today than it ever was. We're right now working in a workforce where we have 4 generations working at the same time. And I think that's a pretty remarkable timing, because we can leverage the expertise from the seasoned workers to the newest, you know, millennials entering the workforce, and really have an opportunity to collaborate and get some of the probably the best ideas and ignite innovation, right? So I personally think that when you leverage these and you capitalize on the differences and the multiple of generations, and you seek that input and feedback, you're going to be able to take your business to the next level. You know, for example, you know, our company, one of the things that we do is, as I've shared before, is we really sit down and ask, you know, what organizations are you affiliated with? And list them all out, and we encourage every one of our employees to really connect with that. So when people ask me, you know, how is it really affecting the bottom line? It's affecting the bottom line because now we have tentacles everywhere, right? We have a representation in every different type of organization, and it really brings that diverse perspective, and it really kind of broadens our perspective, and not just our perspective, but our offerings to various clients.
Thank you. Dr. Williams, as a diverse supplier, how has this social unrest impacted your business?
I would say access to capital is always a challenge, but it's a challenge that you can meet with knowledge and guidance, and just being able to ask questions and not be afraid to ask for help is a great starting point. You know, I encourage anyone, you know, if you're having trouble with access to capital, I'm willing to share the information and just be available for you. So how has it affected us? I think it's affected us, and just to stop and think and listen, and just to be observant and somehow figure out a way to provide some guidance and advice. Thank you.
Thank you. And a follow-up question. You've done a phenomenal job in the field of STEAM, right, as a PhD in engineering. Corporate America is always looking for more people of color in the STEM fields. What advice would you give corporate America on how to locate those people?
Get involved in some of the advocacy groups, from anything from Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers to National Society of Black Engineers to Society of Women Engineers. They're great organizations to kind of get involved in, participate in some of the conferences, whether it's virtual, online, doing workshops, doing career fairs virtually. It's a great way to get out there and participate in tutoring. Online tutoring is great. There's lots of platforms where you can do online tutoring. And just by the presence alone, will garner interest and they'll follow your footsteps. Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, Warren, we're all enjoying a great summer right now with sunny outside, but we know that the fire season is not far away. How has COVID-19 affected our wildfire safety plans?
Yeah, tons of year-round work going into this for everybody's awareness. Those of you who've been in San Diego a while know that we are not immune to wildfires, lots of causes of wildfires, and we just need to make sure that utility infrastructure does not cause a wildfire. We have to be perfect. Safety is our core at the company. We plan for fire season year round. We do a number of trainings. I probably had more than 15 this year, and I'm just in government affairs, right? So everybody in the company has done a number of trainings, some mandated, some optional, and really doing our best to make sure that we protect customers in the event we have to do a public safety power shutoff. We're holding a number of webinars for our elected officials, our agency partners. We have briefed all of our fire chiefs a couple times this year throughout the entire service territory, and that goes South Orange County all the way down to the border and out east. We're trying to do our best to stay in touch, extending contracts for helicopters, making sure our 170 weather stations are in tip-top shape. We get 10-minute data intervals in terms of the data that comes off those weather center stations. And we have 6 full-time meteorologists who are analyzing that data. So you can rest assured that your utility is abundantly prepared, and we have to be perfect. The decisions that we make are so paramount to keeping this town safe. So you can rest assured that SDG&E is doing everything we can to keep our community safe. If you have ideas, if you have widgets, products, services, please reach out to any of us. We would love to learn more about them. But that is paramount for our company.
Warren, I heard a rumor that SDG&E has the most sophisticated weather station, if not in the country, in the U.S. Any truth to that rumor?
You know what? That is actually not fake news, Bruce. That is true. That is not a hoax. Yes, we have an incredible weather center, emergency operations center. Like I said, 6 full-time meteorologists, and it didn't happen overnight, right? We've been working on this for 12 years. And had to get better and better every single year. We recently received the Edison Award for wildfire safety, which is like the Grammys or Emmys for utilities. And we're continuing to get better. We're continuing to find ways to not take folks out of service in the event of a hurricane force wind or Santa Ana that could cause a wildfire. So lots of innovation in the space, and we're not done yet.
And I understand that great weather station not only benefits SDG&E, but we're nice enough to share that information with a lot of people. And also, I understand the governor actually toured our weather station not too long ago,
yes.
Before COVID-19, right?
Yep. Governor Newsom was down, really impressed. Like I said, a number of elected officials have been through it. And I would just offer to those who are on the call, you're sort of in the family, right? So if you want to be part of a future briefing, we can set up a webinar for you. It's just an exciting thing that San Diego has. We have a really unique climate, and so we have to do more preparations than the average utility across the country, and of course, happy to share the story.
Thanks, Warren.
Sure.
Hey, Matt, where do most businesses get it wrong when interacting with the press and the public during a crisis?
It's a great question. I think where most companies, to me, get it wrong is by assuming or guessing when they don't know the information. And in a crisis, there are things that you know, and there are things that you don't know. The most dangerous thing you can do is guess or assume. And I look at Warren again on this, because Warren in his position doesn't have the luxury of being able to guess or assume. He has to know things or not know things and find them out. And I think that is probably the most important thing that happens, because what happens if you guess or assume is you're going to find out a crisis evolves. Every crisis evolves. And we've seen COVID evolve from February into March, into April, into now we're in July. And it keeps unfolding with new wrinkles, new changes, new things happen. Things open, things close, things move, which means that your response has to be fluid and you have to be comfortable dealing in ambiguity. But that doesn't mean your response needs to anchor you to something that may or may not be true. So I think people have to get comfortable doing what young children are very comfortable doing, which is saying, I don't know. However, with the caveat of adding, but I will find out. Here is what I know. Here is what I can tell you. Here is what I know that is factual, and list that. But guessing or assuming, if you're 80% sure, you're unsure. If you 70% know, you don't know. The issue is once you say it, it becomes fact. It doesn't matter. It's not fact. Your intent is not to make it fact. But once it's in print somewhere, it becomes fact in a lot of people's minds, and that perception becomes reality, and that becomes the anchor. And that is a dangerous thing to do, again, as in a crisis, which is a fluid situation and constantly changing and, again, constantly evolving. To use a term that Erica used earlier, which I love, it's tentacles and goes in many different directions.
So, Matt, what is the biggest impediment to effective crisis communication?
Believing nothing will change and that everything is going to go back to normal, that everything is just going to get back to normal, or that today is now the new normal and everything is going to be like it is today. And the reality is tomorrow might be like it is today. Tomorrow might be completely different than today. No one knows what the new normal is. I am going to leverage Warren all the time for his weather forecast, because as we know, whether it's meteorologists or economists, there are a lot of people who are very, very bright and very, very educated who try to predict what is going to happen and do so unsuccessfully. Why? Because we're human. We can't predict what's going to happen. So to me, one of the biggest skill sets I think any entrepreneur or small business owner really needs to get comfortable with at this moment in time, and is going to be a key to success in this next decade, is getting comfortable dealing with ambiguity and dealing with change. And I think those are going to become skill sets and traits that our universities are actually going to start to have to hammer on, because I think that's going to become our new reality, is being able to, you might know something now, but it might be different tomorrow. As we're seeing, everything is evolving very, very differently. But I think the biggest impediment, getting back to your original question, Bruce, is thinking that nothing will change, or that it has changed and whatever it has changed into is now what it's going to be like forever.
Thank you, Matt. For those who joined us late, this is the SDG&E webinar series, number 7. Our discussion today is how businesses adapt through dynamic situations. Our panelists today are Warren, Erica, Matt, and Dr. Edward Williams. We've had a phenomenal conversation. We're about halfway through. We're going to continue, but if you have a question that you would like to ask, please type it into the meetings chat, and we will get to your questions soon. Erica, some people say success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. However, you have a different thought process. Share it with us, please.
Well, I do believe success is defined with preparation and seizing the opportunity. But recently, I have been listening to a lot of TED Talks and motivational, especially during the time of COVID. And I came across a really strong message. If everybody knows Twitter, that's out there, he was the co-founder of Twitter, Biz Stone. He talked about his approach of how he really defines success. And he really defines it as an opportunity being manufactured. And it really hit home to me as a new business owner here, because a lot of times we work really, well, a lot of times, the reality is we work very hard all times and all days. And sometimes you don't have that opportunity that's presented right in front of you. And sometimes things just don't line up, and that's just life, and that's business. It's not always pretty, and it's not always easy on the other side. So you have to make the initiative to find the opportunities, especially now. I mean, we're experiencing COVID. We're trying to grow a business, and we had to take a step back and really say, where's the opportunity and how are we going to reinvent ourselves to bring value back to our clients? So once again, we went back to our team and said, what are we good at? Where's the needs right now? And the needs in our industry was the infrastructure. It's growing. We need construction. So we had to repivot our business. We had to provide services where the need were and where the dollars were being sent. Those kind of situations is things that we had to manufacture ourselves. So I define success as, yes, it is opportunity, but at the same time, it's creating that opportunity for yourself and going after it.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you. Dr. Williams, we're all making sacrifices right now. We're wearing masks, we're social distancing, we're working from home. How many years did it take you to get your PhD?
It took about 4 years, with a lot of like work between like masters and bachelors. But for the most part, it was a lot of people that got me here, such as like my family, like my uncle Fred, or my father. Couldn't make it without them, and having having a lot of people behind you, can't do it alone. So it's a team effort.
Was the sacrifice worth it?
Absolutely. My father always preached to me that, the more you can learn from others, the better off you'll be. So I had to sacrifice to do that, so yes.
So in this very difficult time, and we're all making sacrifices, and we're wondering for how long. Any words of wisdom for us to hang in there, and that this one day will be over and a distant memory?
I would just say everything shall pass. Everything always does pass in life. And, as long as you have your family and you stay close to your friends, families, and relatives, and you lean on each other, never be afraid to ask for help, and you'll be all right. You'll get through it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
After this next question to Warren, we're going to go to the listeners for questions. Warren, how important is a business resumption plan to an organization?
Yeah, business resumption plans, what most of us know as BRPs, are super important. You sort of know who's on deck and who's on first if something happens. I would just say that a good BRP in the event of an emergency means that your employees are not having to make decisions and choices. They sort of know what to do, and you've rehearsed and you're prepared. You know who's on first, like I said. So I think it's really important. The other thing I'll add to it is that very few people, including SDG&E, had a well built out BRP for a pandemic, right? And so thinking through what those emergencies possibly could be, it's not just the wildfires or the earthquakes or the storms, but a pandemic is, as we're living right now, just as dangerous. So building one out, being prepared, refreshing it at least annually is super important, and makes your job during an emergency so much easier.
So Warren, here's a tough question for you out of left field.
Go for it.
As good as SDG is at handling emergencies and wildfires and unexpected events, did we plan or have a plan for a pandemic, especially of this size?
We had sort of a hybrid plan, but it wasn't perfect, right? And we've sort of had to build the airplane mid-flight. It's something I think we'll always have built out for the future. Emergencies are so they're in the DNA of a utility, right? Our crews get sent all over the country in the event of emergency. We're so prepared for that. This is just different. You think about our crews who work in field. If you have 2 employees who are in a truck, you have a 2-person crew. Well, 2-person crews are used to driving to a job site in the same truck. That could no longer happen, right? So we had to rent a bunch of cars. The list goes on and on. So no, Bruce, I wouldn't say that we were perfectly prepared. I would say our employees have stepped up incredibly well and been very committed to make sure that plane that was built mid-flight would fly.
Wonderful. And it's working well. So from an SDG&E employee, I think we've adapted very, very well. So thank you. Again, if you have questions, please type it into meeting chat. With that, we'll continue with Matt. Matt, why does CSR need to be a part of your strategy? And what is CSR?
CSR is corporate social responsibility. It needs to be part of your strategy because it's the right thing to do. It also needs to be part of your strategy because, as we're seeing, social responsibility matters to consumers, and it matters a great deal to consumers. And the reality is, your competitors are going to be utilizing CSR. Trust me, they will. It's a necessity at this point in time. I don't even think it's an option.
Okay. I have another question for you, Matt, and after that, I'm going to allow each of the panelists to ask someone a question if you like. But for now, Matt, many organizations have been putting out statements, which is a great thing to do. What else can organizations do at this moment in time?
I think organizations can be open and transparent with sharing information. I think organizations can talk to their employees, can engage their employees, can engage their team members, and engage their stakeholders internally and externally.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question for Matt, particularly as a business owner, and I think Dr. William and I have talked about this, but you know, we've dealt with resiliency on an individual level, but when we're looking now as an organization and running, you know, a business owner and having all these employees, how do we create a plan for our employees and communicate that so that they're resilient through these crisis situations?
You know, it's a great question, Erica. Thank you. I mean, it's a fascinating time in terms of communication. The way COVID struck and the speed and ferocity with which it struck, and people were sent home and we went into quarantine. Companies, all of the abilities to connect and all of those quote unquote tentacles that keep everyone connected started to dissipate very, very quickly. So I tended to see companies really communicating constantly with employees, team members. And we turned the corner where almost every call turned into a Zoom call, and calls that would have normally been a conference call or could have been handled just via teleconference became Zoom calls. Then we encountered Zoom fatigue. Then we saw people continuing to email with their employees. But there was a Gallup poll that came out this morning that was really interesting. It reported that a number of employees, the majority that they polled, felt to some degree disengaged from their organization. And I think that's because organizations can really, communication is a two-way street, and communication means listening as well. And I think we don't have answers for everything, and no organization has answers for everything right now. But what organizations can do is have open conversations, listen, and again, understanding that you don't have to solve everything immediately on the spot. What you have to do is be open to it, be able to listen, and work through situations and work through them together. I think that's the definition of resiliency.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Sydney, and this is for Warren. Warren, we're starting to notice a second wave, if you want to refer to it that way, or a reoccurrence of the viruses in San Diego and California. How is SDG&E looking at either pivoting, changing, or what are they doing to address this with employees to make sure that they are moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think that the key is to just be honest, right? So we have a number of employees, and I'm sure all of you too, yourselves, your employees who are dying to get back to the office. I don't know if it's a kid thing, if it's a spouse thing, but folks really want to get back, and we're just not there yet, right? Putting anybody at risk is just not okay. We've got to take care of our employees, and we've got to take care of our customers. So I think being honest with folks, checking in is so important. One story I'll tell you, I deal with elected officials, right? So most of the calls I get are complaints all day, every day. We're an infrastructure company. Folks don't want to see our crews, our poles, our trucks, our helicopters. So we used to getting complaints. I had the mayor of Poway, some of you may know Steve Voss, call, and he just called to say hi and check in and make sure I was doing okay. Like, what? I'm used to complaints, right? Like a helpline over here. So I would just say, anytime you can call and check in on your stakeholders, your customers, your employees, like you would your friends and family, just goes such a far way. I'll always remember that, with no ask, just to make sure folks are doing okay. So Sydney, I know it's a long answer to your question, but being honest with folks and checking in on them for no other reason, just to make sure they're okay, is super important.
Hey, Warren, a follow-up question. We have lots of businesses on the line here. And
Yeah.
many offices are empty. Maybe one or two people are in the offices because most people are working from home. So what advice can you give businesses for managing their energy costs, given those facts?
For sure. So we have a business contact center. For those of you who have a pen and paper, 800-411-SDGE, and just click on business. You can get connected with a business energy solutions specialist. If you have questions or you want to just give your account number and say, hey, what do I do? Your address, business energy savings at sdge.com. Go on our website and you click on business, there's some tips. There are a number of things we can do. Some of the obvious ones, shutting things down, making sure your printer's not going, and then not so obvious ones, right? Like changing out even outdoor lighting, which some of you may have continue while you're not having employees there for safety reasons. You can ask about that. Lighting programs, a whole bunch of things that I think like I said, we've all paid into it. Let your utility help you with that.
Thank you. Hey, Erica, I want to ask you, in a short period of time, your firm has been able to hire and retain great and diverse talent. What is the secret to finding amazing, diverse candidates?
Well, I got to say there is no secret, and I believe we got to share all the information here and really help each other. But what I have found is really being connected to various organizations that are dear to your heart. We talked about corporate social responsibility here. I'm a big believer of it. It's part of our core center of our business model. But even, I look at you, Bruce Mayberry, you're the chairman of the Central San Diego Black Chamber. And I think if more business owners out there could connect and affiliate with organizations that are dear to their heart, you're going to acquire and expand your network and really get in good talent that you may have not been exposed to if you would have been in your own circle. And I try to challenge myself and other people here too. The next time you do have an opportunity to join a mixer, whether it's through a webinar or Zoom, look for somebody that you don't know. Maybe you've seen their name or you've heard of them, and reach out to them. Reach out to me if I don't know you. I've received a couple contacts, and I'm a big believer too of anybody that reaches out, they invest in you, you invest back in them. There's partnerships that can come from that. And that's kind of my kickstart of how we started our business, is really kind of looking at the network and the individuals of things that they were compassionate about and bringing those in. And then they had a reference of a whole list of other really good talent. So it really encourages not just a collaborative approach, but a multi approach to really bringing talent from a lot of perspectives and backgrounds.
Thank you. We're getting close to the end of our time. We've been here with Warren, Erica, Matt, and Dr. Edward Williams. And I do say doctor because after all those years, you deserve it, PhD. We're talking about how businesses adapt through dynamic situations. And I'm going to ask a final question to each of our panelists, the same question, and then we're going to get to your list of leave-behinds for our audience. So these are clearly very stressful times that we're all living in, and we all have very, very stressful jobs. And I echo that twice for you, Warren. What do you do to reward yourself at the end of a long and stressful day? Warren, you want to start us off?
Rosé.
Do you do a glass or the bottle?
We'll save that for another time, Bruce.
How about you, Matt? What do you do?
It's a great question again, Bruce. I do two things. One, and it's going to sound self-serving, and it really isn't. I try to mentor at least 3 or 4 young adults a day at the end of my day, besides during the day, because it benefits them, but it really makes me feel good. I think in this time, in any time of crisis, feeling connected and feeling a part of something bigger is a very necessary thing. We often feel very alone, especially as a small business owner or an entrepreneur. And someone, as you mentioned in the beginning, I'm used to traveling every week. My wife and my dog have been wondering why I'm in the house for more than 4 days at a time, because it's the first time in our 18-year relationship that it's occurred. So that's the feel good. And then I jump on my skateboard and I skateboard around as a middle-aged man with longish hair, skateboarding around and having my neighbors look and wonder what's happening. But it makes me feel good because it reminds me of a better time.
Congratulations. Dr. Williams.
I actually spend my time in martial arts to recenter and refocus. It could be a challenging day sometimes where you have to call like 10, 15 people within 3 hours, and sometimes I refocus and I just work on my martial arts forms and work with my son on his martial arts, and that's my time together with the kids and with the family. So thank you.
Enjoy it. It will go fast. Erica?
Well, I do agree with Warren. You and I are together on that one, but I also have children, and I try to spend some time with them when, even though we have a lot of quality, a lot of time together, I try to spend the quality time, and I have boys, and I'm girly, so that means I have to do the boy stuff with them, and that's okay because it gets me outside of my day-to-day minutia and gets me to think like a kid again. And I got to tell you, you come up with really good ideas by listening to your children, and it just brings your center back down. It was actually my son that helped me kind of come up with the business name and the logo. So those kind of fun things by engaging your children and your goals and dreams really kind of help them also see other options of what they can do in their life, but also help you along the way as well. So that's something that I do, along with what Warren said as well.
Fabulous. Again, we're getting close to the end of our time of this great conversation on how businesses adapt through dynamic situations. I know each of you were kind enough to give a couple of bullet points and leave behind for our audience today. So we're going to put those up, and then we'll have each one of you go through your bullet points as we wrap up. Linda, can you put that up for us, please? So Dr. Williams, we're going to go out of sync here a little bit, but if you want to start with your takeaways, please.
Yeah, the important thing is never to give up, and always believe that you can do anything. Anything is possible. Never talk yourself into that you can't do anything. I know in this challenging COVID time, you can kind of be by yourself sometimes, but you always have to remember just to believe and never give up. And then also take the time to invest in technology infrastructure. We all have smartphones. Take a time, figure out Zoom, figure out Teams. Even when you log off of here, play around with some of the extra features, because it might be those extra features. Like today, I learned about backgrounds. You see the background here, right behind me. I learned that today, so that was very helpful. So just take the time, ask questions. Never be afraid to ask a question, because the only thing that's wrong is when you don't ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Great takeaways. Erica, you're on.
Okay, let's see, what have I put in? Oh, well, I believe everything you do, you have to have purpose in what you do, and really take a reflection. I know it's a pandemic. I know there's a lot of stress as a business owner out there. I can connect on so many levels. It's disappointment, but remember why you started the business, and don't forget that. So whatever you're doing, remember the ultimate effect of that, and that's the purpose that drives you and motivates you every day. And the second thing that I really believe in is a people-first approach. We didn't get to talk about it, but our business model was built on a servant leadership. It's something that I studied for. It's something that I believe in, and it's something we've implemented in a business plan. It is a progressive model. But if more businesses can really invest more in their people and understanding what their strengths are and really collaborating with them, you're going to find out that the talent you have is going to be so much better, and your offering is going to be so much at a different level than other businesses, and it's going to separate you because your people are the greatest investments. And that's something that I hope, we can take away here. And just the last thing is, we're all going through tough times. We all have a story. You've heard my story, but, and it's not going to end. We're going to experience more hardships. We have to develop resiliency, and we have to, develop mechanisms on how to react to it. So be okay with being uncomfortable. As a leader, it's going to always be dynamic, and you're always going to be in uncomfortable situations. So if you don't have a plan, hopefully you've learned some tips today. I know I've taken a lot of tips too here. I was writing, but prepare your mindset and implement a plan to help you deal with crisis.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you. Matt.
Thank you again, Bruce, and thank you to all the panelists. I've learned so much today, and I really appreciate it. So again, crises don't happen at opportune times. They happen at inopportune times. So you really want to start planning today. And what that means is start putting together a crisis communication plan, determine roles, chain of command, trying to figure it out during a crisis, really puts any organization of any size in a really precarious position. So figure out who's in charge of what, who manages the existing business, who reaches out to customers who haven't been affected, who reaches out to customers who have been affected, who reaches out to regulators, who contacts employees, who's in charge of internal communication. Do you have your lists? Do you know who your advocates are? Do you know who your stakeholders are? Who outside of your organization can advocate for you? Where are those regulatory contacts? Put them together and have them there, because trying to put them together in the midst of a crisis really very rarely works effectively. Second, a crisis communication plan is an evergreen document. And what I mean by that is it has to be looked at and reviewed constantly. The reason most companies do have crisis communication plans, the reason that most of them are ineffective, and I'm not suggesting that most of them are, but the ones that are ineffective is because a lot of time is put into preparing them, and then they sit on a shelf, and then they gather dust. And then a crisis happens, and then everyone says, what do we do? And they grab the plan off the shelf, and the plan at that point is dated. So I would encourage everyone, now you've lived through the beginning of this, put that plan together and take a look at it every month or 90 days, 45 days, 90 days, and see what you have to edit, what you have to add, what you might have to change. And then finally, again, know the difference between reacting and responding. Typically, a reaction is going to cause more pain down the line. If they take that extra minute or 5 minutes or 15 minutes or hour, it's going to save you a significant multiple of that same time period at the end.
Thank you, Matt. Very good. Warren, take us home, please.
Yeah, so all the takeaways I've mentioned before, use the programs available to you. My takeaways are perhaps a little bit less inspirational than everybody else's, but there's programs and services available to help you. I would just say, you know, it sounds corny, but your utility has your back. Like, we want to help you. We want to find a way. So call us, reach out, don't be shy. And Bruce, great job moderating. You are entertaining as always. And thank you, everybody, for the gift of your time. This has been great.
That's a great way to end, Warren. Thank you all. I went over a bit. I had a couple of closing remarks, but we want to end on time. I want to thank all of the panelists. You were excellent. Warren, Erica, Matt, Dr. Williams. Thank you all very well. Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. Sydney, closing comments?
Just have a few, Bruce. Excellent panel. You know, thanks to all the panelists that attended today. I truly hope that everyone is able to capture at least a few significant nuggets of information to help their business grow and expand. Thank all the panelists, Erica, Warren, Matt, Dr. Williams. You guys just did a fabulous job in helping our businesses with valuable techniques, advice, tips to help them get beyond the pandemic. I also want to thank my team, as always. Bruce, excellent job. Linda, Sherry, you guys have really helped elevate our webinars and you know, the preparedness and just delivering a successful event time and time again. Thank you. I hope that today's event provides informative, relative information for our businesses. Hopefully you can gain this knowledge to ultimately implement within your organization. As Bruce indicated earlier, we do have a survey that you guys will receive today after the event. It's important that we get the feedback. It helps us improve our messaging, helps identify new topics. We are working on the next webinar, and we'll provide an update to that webinar soon. So thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I look forward to connecting with you guys soon. Have a great day.
Thank you all. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sydney.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. Thank you, Bruce.
Bruce, thanks.
Enjoyed it, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.